Have you ever wondered if the universe might be listening to your thoughts? Right now, particles across the cosmos are instantly communicating with each other in ways that defy our understanding of space and time. This phenomenon, called quantum entanglement, suggests that reality operates by rules far stranger than we ever imagined, and some thinkers are beginning to ask a fascinating question. Could this mysterious quantum connection hold clues about how our inner world might relate to the outer world in ways science is only beginning to explore? Welcome to another journey into the quiet mysteries of existence. I'm here to explore with you one of the most intriguing intersections between modern physics and human experience. Tonight, we're diving deep into quantum entanglement and its curious relationship to the practice of manifestation. Not to prove or disprove anything, but simply to wonder together about the beautiful strangeness of reality. Before we begin, let me be clear about something important. What we're exploring tonight exists at the intersection of established science and speculative philosophy. The quantum effects we'll discuss are real and measurable, but their connection to human consciousness and manifestation remains unproven and highly controversial. We're not here to make extraordinary claims, but rather to examine extraordinary questions with both scientific rigor and open curiosity. So settle in, get comfortable, and prepare to have your sense of reality gently stretched. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or somewhere beautifully in between, there's something here for you to ponder. Let's start with what we know for certain. In 1935, three brilliant physicists named Albert Einstein, Boris Podolsky, and Nathan Rosen published a paper that would forever change how we think about reality. They weren't trying to revolutionize anything, mind you. They were actually trying to prove that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that there had to be something missing from our equations. What they discovered instead was something so strange that Einstein himself called it spooky action at a distance. They had stumbled upon what we now call quantum entanglement, a phenomenon where two particles become so intimately connected that measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are in the universe. Imagine you have a pair of coins that are somehow mystically linked. You flip one coin in New York, and the instant it lands on heads, its partner coin in Tokyo immediately lands on tails. Not after a signal travels between them at the speed of light, but instantaneously. This seems to violate everything we thought we knew about cause and effect, about the limits of communication in the universe. Einstein was deeply troubled by this possibility. His theory of relativity had established that nothing, not even information, could travel faster than light. Yet quantum entanglement seemed to suggest that particles could somehow influence each other instantly across any distance. He believed there must be hidden variables, secret information the particle carried with them that predetermined their behaviour. For nearly 30 years, this remained a philosophical puzzle. Then in 1964, an Irish physicist named John Bell changed everything. Bell devised a mathematical test that could distinguish between Einstein's hidden variables and genuine quantum entanglement. When scientists finally performed these experiments in the 1970s and 1980s, the results were clear and shocking. Einstein was wrong. The universe really does allow for instantaneous connections between distant particles. The implications were staggering. Reality, it seemed, was not made of separate, independent objects interacting through space and time. Instead, it appeared to be fundamentally interconnected in ways that transcended our everyday experience of separateness. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The act of observation itself plays a crucial role in quantum mechanics. Before you measure a quantum particle, it exists in what scientists call a superposition, essentially being in multiple states simultaneously. Only when you observe it does it collapse into a definite state. This isn't just theory anymore. Modern experiments have demonstrated repeatedly that the very act of measurement changes quantum reality. Take a moment to let that sink in. The universe, at its most fundamental level, seems to respond to observation, not because particles are conscious or aware, but because the quantum realm operates by rules that make consciousness and reality intimate dance partners in ways we're only beginning to understand. As you listen to this, take a gentle breath and consider something remarkable. Right now, trillions of quantum interactions are occurring in your body, in the neurons firing in your brain, in the chemical processes that sustain your life. Quantum effects are quietly at work. The question that fascinates researchers is whether consciousness itself might emerge from or interact with these quantum processes. This leads us to one of the most profound questions in science. What exactly constitutes an observer in quantum mechanics? The traditional Copenhagen interpretation suggests that any measurement device, whether it's a sophisticated detector or a simple photographic plate, can collapse a quantum wave function. Consciousness, in this view, isn't special or necessary. But some interpretations go further. They suggest that consciousness might play a unique role in the quantum measurement process. Now, this is highly speculative and not accepted by mainstream physics, but it's worth considering the possibility that awareness itself might be more fundamental to reality than we've traditionally assumed. Consider the famous double-slit experiment, where particles behave differently when observed versus when they're not. Some researchers have wondered whether the intention to observe, rather than just the mechanical act of detection, might influence quantum outcomes. Again, this remains unproven, but the questions it raises are profound. What if consciousness isn't just an emergent property of complex neural networks, but something more fundamental? What if awareness, observation, and quantum reality are more intimately connected than our current scientific paradigm allows? These aren't conclusions, but rather invitations to wonder about the nature of existence itself. The neuroscientists Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose have proposed that consciousness might arise from quantum processes in the microtubules of brain cells. Their theory, called orchestrated objective reduction, suggests that the brain might be a quantum computer of sorts, processing information in ways that classical physics cannot fully explain. While this theory remains controversial and unproven, it opens fascinating possibilities about how consciousness and quantum mechanics might intersect. Now we come to the heart of our exploration. For thousands of years, humans have believed that thoughts, intentions, and beliefs can somehow influence reality. From ancient prayer practices to modern manifestation techniques, cultures across the world have maintained that the inner world of consciousness can affect the outer world of experience. Contemporary manifestation practices often involve visualization, positive thinking, and the belief that focusing on desired outcomes can help bring them into existence. Millions of people swear by these techniques, reporting remarkable synchronicities and seemingly impossible coincidences that followed periods of focused intention. But here's where we must be very careful. There is no scientific evidence that thoughts alone can directly influence external reality through quantum mechanisms. The quantum effects that occur in particle physics operate at scales far too small to directly affect the macroscopic world we inhabit. Any claims about thoughts causing quantum effects that manifest real-world changes remain unproven and are not supported by current scientific understanding. However, there are some intriguing connections worth exploring, not as proof of manifestation, but as windows into how consciousness and reality might be more interconnected than we typically assume. Let's examine these with appropriate skepticism and wonder. First, consider the placebo effect. This is a well-documented phenomenon where belief in a treatment can produce real physiological changes even when the treatment itself is inert. Brain imaging studies show that placebo responses involve measurable changes in neural activity. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for higher-level thinking, connects to regions that produce neurochemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, and even natural opioids. This demonstrates that beliefs and expectations can indeed influence physical reality, but through well-understood biological pathways rather than mysterious quantum effects. The mind-body connection is real and measurable, but it operates through conventional physiological mechanisms. Second, there's the fascinating field of neuroplasticity research. Studies show that visualization and focused attention can literally reshape the brain's neural pathways. When athletes visualize perfect performances, the same brain regions activate as during actual physical practice. This isn't quantum magic, but it does show how directed consciousness can create measurable changes in the organ that generates our experience of reality. As we drift deeper into this exploration, notice how these ideas might resonate with your own experience. Have you ever had moments where focused intention seemed to align with unexpected outcomes? Where thinking deeply about someone led to an unexpected call or message from them? While we can't attribute these experiences to quantum entanglement, we can appreciate that they point to something profound about how consciousness navigates reality. Perhaps the connection isn't that thoughts directly manipulate quantum fields, but rather that focused awareness helps us notice and respond to subtle patterns and opportunities that were always present. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest something even more intriguing, though it remains highly speculative. The concept of retrocausality proposes that quantum effects might flow not just forward in time, but backward as well. In this view, future quantum states might influence past quantum states, creating a kind of temporal entanglement. If consciousness somehow interfaces with quantum processes, as some theories suggest, then perhaps focused intention doesn't create future outcomes so much as it helps us align with possibilities that exist across time. Again, this is purely speculative, not established science, but it offers a fascinating framework for thinking about how manifestation might work. Consider the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. In this mind-bending demonstration, a photon seems to decide whether to behave as a wave or particle based on measurements that haven't been made yet when the photon begins its journey. The future measurement appears to retroactively determine the photon's past behaviour. This doesn't mean that human consciousness can reach back in time to change the past, but it does suggest that the relationship between past, present, and future in the quantum realm might be far more fluid than our everyday experience suggests. What if manifestation works not by forcing reality to conform to our desires, but by helping us recognise and align with quantum possibilities that already exist in potential? What if focused intention serves as a kind of quantum compass guiding us toward probable futures that resonate with our deepest intentions? These remain open questions, invitations to wonder rather than conclusions to accept. The beauty lies not in having definitive answers, but in maintaining the humility to recognize how much mystery still surrounds the relationship between consciousness and reality Take another gentle breath and let yourself sit with these possibilities without needing to believe or disbelieve them. Sometimes the most profound insights come not from certainty, but from the willingness to remain open to wonder. The intersection of quantum physics and consciousness remains one of the most fascinating frontiers in human understanding. While we cannot yet prove that manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms, we can appreciate the profound questions these ideas raise about the nature of reality, awareness, and our place in the cosmic dance of existence. As we prepare to explore even deeper mysteries, remember that the goal isn't to solve these puzzles once and for all, but to let them expand our sense of what might be possible in this strange and beautiful universe we call home. Home. As we drift deeper into these mysteries, let's pause for a moment and consider something that might be happening in your own experience right now. As you listen to these words, your consciousness is somehow weaving together abstract concepts about quantum mechanics with personal reflections about possibility and belief. This process itself, this dance between attention and understanding, might offer clues about how consciousness navigates reality. There's something profound about the way focused awareness seems to bring certain aspects of reality into sharper relief, while allowing others to fade into the background. Think about the last time you learned a new word or concept. Suddenly you began noticing it everywhere, as if the universe had conspired to present you with examples. This isn't magic, of course. The word was always there, but your attention had been tuned to recognize it. This phenomenon, called the frequency illusion, or the Bader-Meinhof effect, reveals something fascinating about consciousness. We don't passively receive reality like empty vessels. Instead, we actively participate in constructing our experience through the selective focus of attention. Our beliefs, expectations, and intentions act like filters, highlighting certain patterns while obscuring others. Now, some researchers have begun to wonder whether this process might operate at deeper levels than we typically recognize. If consciousness somehow interfaces with the quantum processes that underlie all physical reality, then perhaps the way we direct our attention might influence which quantum possibilities become actualized in our experience. This remains highly speculative, of course. There's no scientific evidence that human consciousness directly collapses quantum wave functions or creates macroscopic changes through quantum effects. But the questions it raises are profound. What if the relationship between mind and reality is more participatory than we've assumed? What if consciousness isn't just a passive observer of an independent universe, but an active participant in the ongoing creation of experience? Consider the strange world of quantum delayed choice experiments. In these demonstrations, it appears that future measurements can retroactively determine the past behavior of particles. A photon seems to decide whether it traveled as a wave or particle based on measurements that haven't even been made yet when it begins its journey. While this doesn't mean human thoughts can travel backward in time, it does suggest that the quantum realm operates by rules that make past, present, and future far more fluid than our everyday experience suggests. Some interpretations propose that all quantum possibilities exist simultaneously until observation selects which timeline becomes actualized. What if manifestation practices work not by forcing reality to conform to our desires, but by helping us align our attention with quantum possibilities that already exist in potential? What if focused intention serves as a kind of navigational tool, helping us recognize and move toward probable futures that resonate with our deepest aspirations? These remain open questions, not established facts, but they invite us to consider whether the boundary between inner and outer reality might be more permeable than traditional materialism suggests. Let yourself sink a little deeper into contemplation now. Notice how these ideas might be shifting your sense of what's possible, not because we're making extraordinary claims, but because we're questioning extraordinary assumptions about the nature of reality itself. In the quantum world, particles don't exist in isolation. They exist within fields of probability, influenced by their environment and their relationships with other particles. Some physicists describe reality as fundamentally relational rather than composed of separate, independent objects. Everything exists in dynamic relationship with everything else. This perspective, sometimes called relational quantum mechanics, suggests that properties like position, momentum, and spin don't exist as absolute characteristics of particles. Instead, they emerge from the relationships between particles and their observers. Reality, in this view, is not a collection of things, but a network of interactions. If consciousness somehow participates in this relational reality, then perhaps manifestation works through resonance rather than direct causation. When we align our internal states with desired outcomes, we might not be forcing reality to change so much as harmonizing with quantum possibilities that already exist. Think of it like tuning a radio. You don't create the radio waves by turning the dial. Instead, you align your receiver with frequencies that are already present in the electromagnetic field. Perhaps consciousness operates similarly, tuning into quantum possibilities that match our energetic resonance. This is purely metaphorical, of course. We have no evidence that consciousness literally resonates with quantum fields. But the metaphor offers a useful framework for understanding how manifestation might work without violating the known laws of physics. Consider how this might appear in everyday life. When you're in a positive, optimistic state, you tend to notice opportunities that were always present but previously invisible to you. You make different choices, take different actions, and respond differently to circumstances. The external world hasn't magically changed, but your relationship with it has been transformed. Some researchers have explored whether quantum coherence might play a role in biological systems, including the brain. While this remains controversial, studies suggest that quantum effects might influence processes like photosynthesis in plants and navigation in birds. The idea that consciousness might involve quantum processes, while unproven, isn't entirely outside the realm of scientific possibility. Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose have proposed that consciousness emerges from quantum computations in the microtubules of brain cells. Their theory suggests that the brain might process information through quantum superposition and entanglement, allowing for non-local correlations within neural networks. While this theory remains highly speculative and is not accepted by mainstream neuroscience, it raises intriguing possibilities. If consciousness does involve quantum processes, then perhaps focused intention could influence these processes in ways that affect our perception and behavior, creating what appears to be manifestation. This wouldn't mean that thoughts directly manipulate external reality through quantum effects. Instead, it might suggest that consciousness operates as a quantum system that can align with certain possibilities while filtering out others. The changes would occur primarily in our perception, decision-making, and behavior rather than in external physical systems. As you continue to listen, allow yourself to wonder about the nature of time itself. In our everyday experience, time feels linear and unidirectional. Past events seem fixed and unchangeable, while future events remain open and uncertain. But quantum mechanics suggests a far stranger picture of temporal reality, Some interpretations of quantum mechanics propose that all possible timelines exist simultaneously in what physicists call the many worlds or parallel universe scenario. In this view, every quantum measurement splits reality into multiple branches, each representing a different possible outcome. We experience only one branch, but all possibilities remain equally real. While this interpretation remains unproven and highly controversial, it raises fascinating questions about the nature of choice and intention. If all possibilities exist simultaneously, then perhaps manifestation involves aligning with the timeline that matches our desires rather than creating outcomes from nothing. This connects to emerging research on retrocausality in quantum mechanics. Some experiments suggest that quantum effects might flow backward in time, allowing future events to influence past events at the microscopic scale. While this doesn't permit macroscopic time travel or communication with the past, it does suggest that the relationships between cause and effect might be more fluid than we typically assume. The transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics, developed by physicist John Cramer, proposes that quantum interactions involve a handshake between past and future. In this model, particles send offer waves forward in time and confirmation waves backward in time. The interaction is complete only when these waves converge, allowing information to flow both directions through time. If consciousness somehow interfaces with these quantum processes, as some theories suggest, then perhaps focused intention doesn't create future outcomes so much as it helps us recognize and align with possibilities that exist across time. This remains purely speculative, but it offers a framework for understanding how manifestation might work without violating causality. Consider how this might manifest in your own experience. Have you ever had the sense that a desired outcome was somehow inevitable, that you are moving toward it across time rather than creating it through effort? Some people describe manifestation as a process of alignment rather than creation, of recognizing and embodying possibilities that already exist in potential. This doesn't mean that all desires automatically manifest, or that positive thinking alone creates reality. Instead, it suggests that consciousness might play a more active role in selecting which quantum possibilities become actualized in our experience. The process would still require appropriate action, but it might be guided by intuitive recognition of resonant possibilities rather than pure logical analysis. Let's ground these speculative ideas in something more concrete. Neuroscience research has revealed remarkable insights into how beliefs, expectations, and visualization affect the brain and body. These findings don't prove that manifestation works through quantum mechanisms, but they do demonstrate that consciousness can influence physical reality through well-understood biological pathways. Studies of the placebo effect show that belief in a treatment can produce measurable physiological changes even when the treatment itself is inert. Brain imaging reveals that placebo responses involve real changes in neural activity, neurotransmitter release, and even gene expression. The mind-body connection operates through tangible biological mechanisms, not mysterious quantum effects. Similarly, research on neuroplasticity demonstrates that focused attention and visualization can literally reshape the brain's neural pathways. When musicians imagine playing their instruments, the same brain regions activate as during actual performance. Athletes who visualize perfect technique show improved performance comparable to physical practice. These findings suggest that manifestation practices might work primarily by changing the brain and nervous system in ways that affect perception, decision-making, and behavior. Rather than directly influencing external reality, focused intention might optimize our internal state for recognizing and acting upon opportunities that align with our goals. The default mode network in the brain, active during rest and introspection, plays a crucial role in self-referential thinking and future planning. Some researchers suggest that meditation and visualization practices might modify this network's activity, potentially enhancing our ability to imagine and work toward desired outcomes. Mirror neurons, which fire both when performing an action and when observing others perform the same action, might also play a role in manifestation practices. By vividly imagining desired outcomes, we might activate the same neural pathways involved in actually experiencing those outcomes, priming the brain to recognize and pursue similar experiences in reality. If you enjoy drifting through these explorations without interruption, members get every episode 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join them whenever you feel ready. These neurobiological mechanisms provide a plausible foundation for understanding how manifestation might work without invoking quantum effects that operate beyond the scale of neural processes. The brain is remarkably plastic and responsive to conscious direction, offering ample opportunity for focused intention to create meaningful changes in experience. As we near the end of our exploration, take a moment to notice how your own sense of possibility might have shifted during our time together. This isn't because we've proven anything definitive about manifestation or quantum consciousness, but because we've opened space for wonder about the relationship between mind and reality. Perhaps the most honest conclusion we can reach is that consciousness remains deeply mysterious. We don't fully understand how subjective experience emerges from neural activity, how attention selects which aspects of reality to highlight, or how beliefs and expectations influence perception and behavior. What we do know is that consciousness is not passive. It actively participates in constructing our experience of reality through countless subtle processes of selection, interpretation, and response. Whether this participation extends to quantum levels remains an open question, one that science may eventually answer more definitively. In the meantime, we can appreciate manifestation practices for what they demonstrably accomplish. They focus attention, clarify intentions, and optimize our internal state for recognizing and pursuing meaningful opportunities. They help us become more aware of our beliefs and expectations, allowing us to consciously choose more empowering perspectives. These benefits don't require quantum entanglement or consciousness-mediated wave function collapse to be valuable. They work through well-understood psychological and neurobiological mechanisms that are no less remarkable for being conventional. Yet something in us continues to wonder about deeper connections. Perhaps this wonder itself serves an important function, keeping us open to possibilities we haven't yet imagined. Science progresses not just through rigorous testing of established theories, but through the willingness to ask questions that seem impossible to answer. The intersection of quantum physics and consciousness represents one of the last great frontiers in human understanding. While we cannot yet prove that manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms, we can remain open to the possibility while maintaining appropriate scientific skepticism. What matters most is not whether we can definitively solve these mysteries, but whether we can hold them lightly, allowing them to inspire rather than constrain our exploration of what it means to be conscious beings in a quantum universe. As our journey draws toward its close, let yourself rest in the questions we've explored rather than seeking final answers. Sometimes the most profound insights emerge not from certainty, but from the willingness to remain open to mystery. We've wandered through the strange landscape of quantum entanglement, where particles maintain instantaneous connections across any distance. We've considered the role of observation in quantum mechanics and wondered whether consciousness might participate more actively in reality than traditional science suggests. We've explored how manifestation practices might work through neurobiological mechanisms while remaining open to deeper possibilities. None of this constitutes proof that thoughts can directly manipulate quantum fields or that manifestation operates through non-local consciousness effects. These remain speculative possibilities, not established scientific facts, but the questions they raise continue to inspire researchers and philosophers to push the boundaries of understanding. Perhaps the real value lies not in solving these puzzles definitively, but in allowing them to expand our sense of what might be possible. In a universe where particles can be entangled across cosmic distances, where observation influences reality at the quantum level, and where consciousness emerges from matter in ways we still don't understand, maintaining wonder seems more appropriate than claiming certainty. The practice of manifestation, regardless of its underlying mechanisms, serves as a powerful tool for self-discovery and intentional living. It encourages us to examine our beliefs, clarify our intentions, and take conscious responsibility for the direction of our lives. These benefits alone make it worthy of consideration, even if quantum entanglement plays no role whatsoever. Science will continue to illuminate the relationship between consciousness and reality. New experiments will test the boundaries of quantum effects in biological systems. Advanced brain imaging will reveal more about how intention and attention shape neural activity. These discoveries will either support or refute the speculative connections we've explored tonight. Until then, we can hold these questions lightly, using them as invitations to wonder rather than beliefs to defend. We can appreciate the profound mystery of consciousness while remaining grounded in scientific humility. We can explore manifestation practices with curiosity and discernment, neither dismissing them as impossible nor accepting them as proven fact. The universe continues to surprise us with its strangeness and beauty. From quantum entanglement to the emergence of consciousness, reality operates by principles that challenge our most basic assumptions about separateness, locality, and the nature of existence itself. In this spirit of wonder and humility, perhaps the most honest response to the question of whether quantum entanglement underlies manifestation is simply this: we don't know yet, but the exploration itself reveals something beautiful about the human capacity for curiosity and the universe's inexhaustible capacity for surprise. Thank you for joining me on this contemplative journey through the intersection of quantum physics and consciousness. If this exploration has stirred your curiosity about the nature of reality and awareness, you might find our previous discussion particularly intriguing. Quantum reality reacts when you stop believing your own thoughts. Until we meet again in the space between questions and answers, keep wondering. As we continue to drift through these contemplative waters, let's turn our attention to something that might be happening beneath the surface of every manifestation practice. When someone sits quietly, visualizing their desired outcome with focused intention, they're not just engaging in wishful thinking, they're entering into a dialogue with the quantum field of their own consciousness. Now, this isn't to suggest that consciousness literally manipulates quantum fields in the external world. Rather, it's an invitation to consider how the act of focused attention might create coherence within the quantum processes that underlie neural activity. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness itself might emerge from quantum coherence in the brain's microtubule structures, though this remains highly speculative and unproven. The fascinating thing about quantum coherence is that it requires a delicate balance. Quantum systems maintain their coherent properties only under very specific conditions. Too much noise, too much interference from the environment, and the coherence collapses into classical behavior. Perhaps this is why manifestation practices often emphasize stillness, focus, and the cultivation of clear intention. Not because these states magically influence external reality, but because they might optimize the internal conditions for quantum coherence within consciousness itself. Consider what happens when you sit in meditation, allowing your thoughts to settle and your awareness to become more unified. Neuroscience shows that these states produce measurable changes in brain activity. The default mode network quiets, stress hormones decrease, and neural coherence increases across different brain regions. While we can't yet prove that these changes involve quantum effects, the increased coherence and integration certainly create optimal conditions for insight, creativity, and intuitive guidance. Some researchers have wondered whether the brain might function as a biological quantum computer, processing information in ways that classical neural networks cannot fully explain. The idea is that consciousness might involve quantum superposition, where multiple possibilities exist simultaneously until the moment of awareness collapses them into a single experience. This would mean that every moment of conscious choice involves a kind of quantum measurement, selecting one possibility from many. If this speculative framework has any validity, then manifestation practices might work by helping us become more conscious participants in this quantum selection process. Rather than thoughts directly influencing external reality, focused intention might help us recognize and choose the quantum possibilities within our own consciousness that align with our deepest aspirations. Take a gentle breath and let yourself wonder about the role of synchronicity in your own life. Those moments when thoughts, dreams, and outer events seem to dance together in patterns too meaningful to dismiss as coincidence. While we cannot attribute these experiences to quantum entanglement, we can appreciate how they point towards something profound about the interconnected nature of reality. Jung described synchronicity as meaningful coincidence, events that are connected not by causation, but by significance. Modern complexity science has shown us that interconnected systems often display emergent properties that cannot be predicted from their individual components. Perhaps synchronicity emerges from the complex interplay between consciousness and the vast web of relationships that constitute reality. The quantum field theories that describe fundamental reality reveal that space is not empty, but filled with fluctuating fields of energy and information. Every particle in the universe exists within this field, connected to every other particle through quantum correlations that transcend space and time. While these connections don't create macroscopic synchronicities directly, they do suggest that reality is far more interconnected than our everyday experience suggests. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics propose that information is more fundamental than matter or energy. In this view, reality consists of patterns of information that give rise to the phenomena we experience as particles, forces, and fields. If consciousness involves the processing and integration of information, then perhaps we are more intimately connected to the fundamental structure of reality than materialist science typically assumes. This doesn't mean that thoughts create reality through quantum effects. Instead, it suggests that consciousness and cosmos might share a common informational foundation, making meaningful connections and synchronicities more natural than purely random coincidences would allow. The patterns we recognize as synchronicity might reflect deeper harmonies in the information field that underlies both mind and matter. Consider how this might appear in the practice of manifestation. When you hold a clear intention and remain open to guidance, you might not be forcing reality to conform to your desires. Instead, you might be attuning yourself to informational patterns that were always present but previously unrecognized. The art lies not in manipulation, but in recognition, in becoming sensitive to the subtle signals that guide us toward aligned action. As you listen, notice how these ideas might be shifting something in your own sense of agency and possibility. Not because we're claiming that manifestation works through proven quantum mechanisms, but because we're exploring frameworks that honor both scientific rigor and the mystery of conscious experience. Emergence is one of the most beautiful concepts in science. It describes how simple interactions at one level can give rise to complex properties at higher levels that cannot be predicted from the individual components alone. Consciousness itself appears to be an emergent property of neural activity, though we still don't understand how subjective experience arises from objective processes. Perhaps manifestation involves a similar kind of emergence. When we align our beliefs, emotions, intentions, and actions around a desired outcome, we create conditions for new possibilities to emerge that wouldn't have existed otherwise. This doesn't require quantum entanglement or consciousness-mediated wave function collapse. Instead, it relies on the natural tendency of complex systems to self-organize toward greater coherence and functionality. The brain exemplifies this principle beautifully. Billions of neurons, each following simple rules, give rise to the unified experience of consciousness. No single neuron is conscious, yet their collective activity creates awareness, memory, emotion, and intention. Similarly, when we engage in manifestation practices, we're not relying on any single mechanism, but rather orchestrating multiple levels of our being toward a common purpose. This orchestration involves the alignment of conscious and unconscious processes, the integration of rational planning with intuitive guidance, and the harmonization of internal states with external actions. While individual elements might seem small or insignificant, their coordination can produce emergent outcomes that appear almost magical in their synchronicity and effectiveness. Some researchers have explored whether quantum effects might play a role in neural computation and consciousness. While this remains highly speculative, studies of quantum biology have revealed that quantum coherence does occur in some biological systems, particularly in photosynthesis and possibly in bird navigation. The idea that consciousness might involve quantum processes isn't entirely outside the realm of scientific possibility, though it remains unproven. Let yourself sink deeper into contemplation now. Imagine for a moment that consciousness operates like a quantum receiver, capable of detecting subtle patterns and possibilities that exist below the threshold of ordinary awareness. This remains a metaphor, not a scientific claim, but it offers a useful framework for understanding how intuitive guidance might function. In quantum mechanics, measurement is an active process that involves the interaction between observer and observed. The act of measurement doesn't just reveal pre-existing properties, but participates in determining which properties become actualized. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness might function similarly, not as a passive observer but as an active participant in selecting which possibilities become manifest in our experience. This doesn't mean that thoughts directly collapse quantum wave functions or create macroscopic changes through non-local effects. Instead, it suggests that awareness might be more fundamental to reality than classical physics assumes, and that the boundary between observer and observed might be more fluid than we typically recognize. Consider how this might manifest in everyday experience. When you're trying to solve a creative problem, the solution often emerges not through forced thinking, but through relaxed receptivity. You create space for possibilities to arise that weren't accessible through analytical effort alone. This process feels less like creating something new and more like recognizing something that was always available but previously hidden. Manifestation practices might work similarly. By quieting the analytical mind and opening to intuitive guidance, we might become more sensitive to possibilities that exist in the quantum field of potential surrounding every moment. The key would be learning to listen rather than trying to control, to receive rather than to demand. This kind of quantum listening would require a different relationship with uncertainty and not knowing. Instead of trying to force specific outcomes, we would learn to trust the intelligence of the system we're part of, allowing it to reveal possibilities we might never have imagined on our own. This doesn't guarantee that our desires will manifest, but it opens us to outcomes that might be even more aligned with our deeper purpose. As we approach the final movements of our exploration, take a moment to sense what has shifted in your own understanding. Not necessarily about manifestation or quantum physics, but about the relationship between consciousness and possibility itself. Sometimes the most profound changes occur not through new information, but through subtle shifts in perspective that open previously unseen landscapes of potential. The concept of resonance appears throughout physics, from the quantum realm to cosmic scales. When two systems vibrate at compatible frequencies, they can transfer energy and information with remarkable efficiency. Perhaps consciousness operates according to similar principles, resonating with possibilities that match its energetic signature while remaining deaf to those that don't align. This resonance wouldn't be mystical or supernatural, but rather an expression of how complex systems naturally organize themselves. Just as radio receivers tune into specific frequencies while filtering out others, consciousness might naturally attune to possibilities that match its current state of coherence and intention. The beauty of this framework is that it honors both scientific understanding and subjective experience. It doesn't require us to believe in impossible mechanisms or reject well-established physics. Instead, it invites us to consider how consciousness might participate more actively in reality than purely materialist perspectives suggest, while remaining grounded in principles we can observe and test. Research on meditation and contemplative practices has revealed that these states produce measurable changes in brain activity, stress hormones, immune function, and even gene expression. While these changes occur through conventional biological mechanisms, they demonstrate that consciousness can influence physical reality in profound ways. The question is whether similar principles might operate at subtler levels we haven't yet learned to detect or measure. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that reality consists of overlapping possibilities that become actualized through observation and interaction. If consciousness participates in this process, then perhaps manifestation involves learning to recognize and align with the possibilities that serve our highest development and the well-being of all life. This recognition wouldn't be a mental activity, but rather a whole being resonance that involves intuition, emotion, imagination, and embodied knowing. It would require us to become sensitive to subtle signals that guide us toward aligned action, trusting that the universe contains intelligence and benevolence that can support our deepest aspirations. As our contemplative journey draws toward completion, let yourself rest in the questions we've explored rather than seeking definitive answers. Sometimes the most valuable insights emerge not from solving mysteries, but from allowing them to transform our relationship with uncertainty itself. The intersection of quantum physics and consciousness remains one of the most fertile frontiers in human understanding. While we cannot yet prove that manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms, ongoing research continues to reveal surprising connections between mind and matter, observation and reality, intention and outcome. Future discoveries in neuroscience may reveal how consciousness interfaces with quantum processes in the brain. Advances in quantum biology might show how quantum effects influence biological systems in ways we haven't yet imagined. New interpretations of quantum mechanics could illuminate the role of observation and measurement in determining which possibilities become actualized. These developments will either support or refute the speculative connections we've explored tonight. Until then, we can hold these possibilities lightly, using them as invitations to wonder rather than beliefs to defend. We can approach manifestation practices with curiosity and discernment, appreciating their demonstrated benefits, while remaining open to deeper mechanisms we don't yet understand. The practice of manifestation, regardless of its underlying mechanisms, serves as a powerful tool for conscious living. It encourages us to examine our beliefs, clarify our intentions, and take responsibility for the quality of our inner life. It reminds us that we are not passive victims of circumstance, but active participants in creating our experience of reality. Perhaps most importantly, these practices cultivate the capacity for wonder, that essential human quality that keeps us open to possibilities beyond our current understanding. In a universe where particles can be entangled across cosmic distances and consciousness emerges from matter in ways we still can't explain, maintaining wonder seems more appropriate than claiming certainty. Science will continue to illuminate the relationship between mind and reality. New experiments will test the boundaries of what consciousness can influence. Advanced technologies will reveal more about how intention and attention shape neural activity and perhaps even quantum processes. These discoveries will expand our understanding of what it means to be conscious beings in a quantum universe. As we prepare to complete this exploration, notice how your sense of possibility might have expanded during our time together. This isn't because we've proven anything definitive about quantum manifestation, but because we've created space for wonder about the relationship between consciousness and cosmos. The questions we've explored tonight don't have final answers, and perhaps that's as it should be. The mystery of consciousness, the strangeness of quantum mechanics, and the possibility of deeper connections between mind and matter continue to inspire researchers and philosophers to push the boundaries of understanding. What we can say with confidence is that consciousness is far more than a passive observer of an independent reality. Through attention, intention, belief, and action, we actively participate in constructing our experience of existence. Whether this participation extends to quantum levels remains an open question, but the demonstrated power of consciousness to influence brain states, behavior, and life outcomes is remarkable enough. In the end, Perhaps the value of exploring these connections lies not in solving the mysteries definitively, but in allowing them to expand our sense of what might be possible. The universe continues to surprise us with its depth, beauty, and strangeness. From quantum entanglement to the emergence of consciousness, reality operates by principles that challenge our most basic assumptions about existence itself. In this spirit of wonder and humility, we can approach both science and spirituality with curiosity rather than dogma. We can explore manifestation practices with an open mind while maintaining healthy skepticism. We can appreciate the mystery of consciousness while remaining grounded in scientific rigor. The cosmos is under no obligation to conform to our expectations or limitations. It may be far stranger and more wonderful than we've yet imagined. And perhaps in that strangeness and wonder, there is room for possibilities that bridge the apparent gap between inner and outer reality, between quantum mechanics and conscious experience, between what we know and what we dream might be true. Thank you for joining me on this gentle exploration through the intersection of quantum physics and manifestation. Your curiosity and wonder are part of what makes these investigations possible. If you found yourself drawn into questions about how reality responds to consciousness, you might find our previous exploration particularly fascinating. Quantum reality reacts when you stop believing your own thoughts. Until we meet again in the space where science and mystery dance together, keep wondering. As we settle into this final stretch of our contemplative journey, let yourself notice something quite remarkable. Right now, as these words reach your awareness, quantum processes are unfolding within the neural networks of your brain. Electrons are tunneling through synaptic gaps. Quantum coherence is flickering in and out of existence at microscopic scales. And somehow, from this dance of probability and uncertainty emerges the unified experience of understanding these very ideas. This isn't mysticism speaking, it's the simple recognition that consciousness, whatever it ultimately is, arises from a substrate governed entirely by quantum mechanical principles. Every thought you're having, every moment of recognition or wonder emerges from processes that operate according to the strange rules we've been exploring throughout our time together. The question that continues to fascinate researchers isn't whether quantum mechanics plays a role in consciousness. It must, since quantum mechanics governs all physical processes. The question is whether consciousness somehow amplifies, directs, or meaningfully interacts with quantum effects in ways that could influence our experience of reality. Some interpretations suggest that the brain might maintain quantum coherence at scales much larger than previously thought possible. The warm, wet environment of neural tissue was long considered too chaotic to preserve delicate quantum states, but recent discoveries in quantum biology have revealed that nature has evolved sophisticated mechanisms for protecting quantum coherence even in noisy biological systems. Consider the process of photosynthesis, where plants maintain quantum coherence across relatively large molecular complexes, allowing them to explore multiple energy pathways simultaneously before selecting the most efficient route. Or the navigation systems of migratory birds, which may rely on quantum entanglement in specialized proteins to sense magnetic fields with extraordinary precision. If biological systems can harness quantum effects for practical purposes, perhaps consciousness represents an even more sophisticated example of quantum biology. This remains speculative, of course, but it suggests that the boundary between quantum mechanics and everyday experience might be far more permeable than we typically assume. Take a gentle breath now and consider how this might appear in your own experience of manifestation or intention setting. When you focus deeply on a desired outcome, when your entire being aligns around a clear intention, you're creating conditions of coherence that might optimize whatever quantum processes underlie consciousness itself. This doesn't mean your thoughts are directly manipulating quantum fields in the external world. Instead, it suggests that focused intention might optimize the quantum processes within consciousness, enhancing your capacity for insight, intuition, and aligned action. The changes would occur primarily within your own neural networks, but these internal changes could have profound effects on how you perceive and interact with the world around you. Let yourself drift deeper into contemplation as we explore something that might be happening beneath the surface of every moment of focused awareness. When archaeologists excavate ancient sites, they don't just uncover artifacts, they reveal layers of human intention and meaning that have been preserved across millennia. Similarly, when we examine the phenomenon of attention itself, we might discover that consciousness has been participating in reality's unfolding in ways far more profound than we've typically recognized. Recent neuroscience research has revealed that attention isn't passive, but actively shapes the neural patterns that give rise to our experience. When you focus on something specific, your brain doesn't just process existing information more clearly, it literally changes which neural pathways are strengthened and which are allowed to fade. Over time, this selective attention sculpts the very structure of consciousness itself. This process operates through well-understood mechanisms of neuroplasticity, but some researchers have begun to wonder whether similar principles might operate at quantum scales within the brain. If consciousness involves quantum processes, then perhaps focused attention could influence quantum coherence in ways that affect how information is processed and integrated within neural networks. The implications would be subtle, but potentially profound. Rather than thoughts directly influencing external quantum systems, focused intention might optimize the quantum processes within consciousness, enhancing our capacity for pattern recognition, creative insight, and intuitive guidance. We might become more sensitive to subtle correlations and possibilities that exist in our environment, not because we're manipulating reality through quantum effects, but because we're optimizing our quantum biological capacity for perception. Consider how this might appear in practical manifestation work. When someone engages in deep visualization or meditation around a desired outcome, they might be doing more than just clarifying their goals or boosting their motivation. They might be training their consciousness to recognize and respond to subtle patterns and opportunities that align with their intentions. This wouldn't require any violations of known physics or appeals to supernatural mechanisms. Instead, it would represent a natural expression of how complex systems, including consciousness itself, can be trained to resonate with specific patterns of possibility. Just as musicians can train their ears to detect subtle harmonies that others miss, perhaps we can train our consciousness to perceive and respond to subtle signals that guide us toward aligned outcomes. The training would occur through the repeated practice of coherent states, moments when thoughts, emotions, and intentions align around a common purpose. These states might optimize whatever quantum processes contribute to consciousness, enhancing our natural capacity for wisdom, creativity, and intuitive knowing. As you continue listening, allow yourself to wonder about the nature of information itself. In our digital age, we often think of information as something abstract, bits and bytes flowing through circuits and networks. But quantum mechanics suggests that information might be more fundamental than matter or energy. the basic substance from which physical reality emerges. If this perspective has validity, then consciousness, which seems to specialize in processing and integrating information, might be more intimately connected to the fundamental structure of reality than materialist science typically assumes. This doesn't mean consciousness creates reality through quantum effects, but it does suggest that awareness and cosmos might share a deeper kinship than we've previously imagined. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics propose that reality consists of information patterns that give rise to the phenomena we experience as particles, forces, and fields. In this view, what we call the physical world might be more like a vast information processing system, with consciousness serving as both a product of and participant in this cosmic computation. This framework offers a potential bridge between scientific and contemplative perspectives on manifestation. Rather than thoughts directly manipulating quantum fields, focused intention might help us align with information patterns that were always present but previously unrecognized. The art would lie not in forcing reality to conform to our desires, but in learning to read the subtle signals that guide us toward aligned action. Think of it like learning to navigate by the stars. The constellations don't change their positions because you're looking at them, but developing the skill to read their patterns can guide you toward your destination with remarkable precision. Similarly, manifestation practices might train consciousness to perceive and respond to informational patterns that can guide us toward our deepest aspirations. This guidance wouldn't be mystical or supernatural, but rather an expression of how complex systems naturally organize themselves toward greater coherence and functionality. Just as flocks of birds and schools of fish display emergent intelligence that transcends any individual member, perhaps consciousness can learn to participate in larger patterns of organization that support both individual flourishing and collective well-being. The key would be developing what we might call informational sensitivity, the capacity to detect subtle patterns and correlations that exist below the threshold of ordinary awareness. This sensitivity would be cultivated through practices that enhance coherence within consciousness itself, allowing it to function as a more refined instrument for perception and response. Let yourself sink into these ideas now, not trying to grasp them intellectually, but allowing them to resonate with whatever wisdom exists within your own experience. Sometimes the most profound insights emerge not through analysis, but through a kind of gentle recognition, a sense that we're remembering something we've always known at some level. The concept of emergence appears throughout nature and science, the way simple interactions at one level give rise to complex properties at higher levels that cannot be predicted from the individual components alone. Consciousness itself represents perhaps the most mysterious example of emergence, arising from neural activity in ways we still don't fully understand. Perhaps manifestation involves a similar kind of emergence. When we align our beliefs, emotions, intentions, and actions around a desired outcome, we create conditions for new possibilities to emerge that wouldn't have existed otherwise. This emergence wouldn't require quantum entanglement or consciousness-mediated wave function collapse, but it would rely on the natural tendency of complex systems to self-organize toward greater coherence and functionality. The process might work something like this. Focused intention creates coherence within consciousness, optimizing our capacity for pattern recognition and intuitive guidance. This enhanced perception helps us notice opportunities and make choices that align with our deepest intentions. Over time, These aligned choices create feedback loops that reinforce both internal coherence and external manifestation, leading to outcomes that can seem almost magical in their synchronicity and appropriateness. None of this requires supernatural mechanisms or violations of physical laws. Instead, it represents the natural expression of how consciousness, as a complex adaptive system, can learn to navigate reality more skillfully through the cultivation of internal coherence and external sensitivity. The beauty of this framework is that it honors both scientific understanding and subjective experience. It doesn't ask us to believe in impossible mechanisms or reject well-established physics. Instead, it invites us to consider how consciousness might participate more actively in reality than purely materialist perspectives suggest. While remaining grounded in principles we can observe and potentially test. This participation would be collaborative rather than controlling, involving a kind of partnership with the larger intelligence that seems to pervade natural systems. Rather than trying to force specific outcomes, we would learn to align with the deeper patterns of organization that support both individual fulfillment and collective flourishing. As we approach the deepest waters of our exploration, take a moment to sense how these ideas might be shifting your relationship with uncertainty itself. One of the most profound insights from quantum mechanics is that uncertainty isn't a flaw in our knowledge, but a fundamental feature of reality. At the quantum level, genuine indeterminacy exists. Multiple possibilities remain open until the moment of measurement or interaction. This quantum indeterminacy might offer a clue about how manifestation could work without violating known physical laws. If reality contains genuine openness at its foundation, then perhaps consciousness can participate in selecting which possibilities become actualized, not through direct manipulation of quantum fields, but through subtle influences on the cascade of events that connects quantum indeterminacy to macroscopic outcomes. This influence wouldn't be magical or supernatural, but rather an expression of how complex systems naturally respond to coherent intentions. Just as a small rudder can guide a massive ship by making subtle corrections that accumulate over time, perhaps consciousness can influence the trajectory of events through tiny adjustments that leverage the sensitivity of complex systems to initial conditions. The key insight from chaos theory is that complex systems can be exquisitely sensitive to small changes in initial conditions. A butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil might theoretically contribute to a tornado in Texas through the accumulation of tiny influences across vast scales of space and time. Similarly, the coherent intentions generated by consciousness might create subtle influences that accumulate into significant changes through the complex dynamics of personal and social systems. This wouldn't guarantee that all desires manifest or that positive thinking alone creates reality. Complex systems are influenced by countless factors, and consciousness represents just one stream in the vast river of causation. But it does suggest that awareness might play a more active role in shaping outcomes than purely materialist perspectives allow. The art would lie in learning to work with uncertainty rather than against it, developing the capacity to hold intentions lightly while remaining open to possibilities we might never have imagined. This requires a different relationship with control and a deeper trust in the intelligence that seems to pervade natural systems. Rather than trying to force specific outcomes, we would learn to participate in what we might call quantum partnership, a collaborative relationship with the creative potential that exists at the foundation of reality. This partnership would involve both focused intention and receptive openness, both clear direction and flexible responsiveness. Let yourself rest now in the deepest currents of contemplation, where logic gives way to a more intuitive kind of knowing. Throughout our exploration, we've encountered hints that time itself might be more fluid at quantum scales than our everyday experience suggests. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics propose that effects can flow backward as well as forward in time, creating what physicists call retrocausality. While this doesn't permit macroscopic time travel or communication with the past, it does suggest that the relationship between cause and effect might be more nuanced than linear causation allows. If consciousness somehow interfaces with quantum processes, as some theories suggest, then perhaps focused intention doesn't create future outcomes so much as it helps us recognize and align with possibilities that exist across time. This is highly speculative, of course, and not accepted by mainstream physics, but it offers an intriguing framework for understanding how manifestation might work without violating causality. Instead of thoughts traveling forward in time to influence future events, perhaps consciousness can detect subtle signals from potential futures, helping us navigate toward outcomes that already exist in possibility. Think of it like choosing a path through a vast landscape of potential timelines. Each choice point offers multiple branches, and while we can't control which possibilities exist, we might be able to develop sensitivity to the subtle attractions and resistances that guide us toward paths aligned with our deepest purpose. This navigation wouldn't be intellectual, but rather intuitive, involving a kind of felt sense for the quality and potential of different possibilities. Some paths might feel expansive and energizing, while others feel constrictive or depleting. By learning to read these subtle signals, we might develop what could be called temporal intuition, the capacity to sense which choices lead toward futures that serve our highest development. The practice would involve cultivating both clarity about our deepest intentions and sensitivity to the subtle guidance that emerges when we're truly listening. This guidance might come through synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, changes in energy or mood, or simply an intuitive sense of rightness or wrongness about particular choices. None of this requires believing in supernatural mechanisms or rejecting scientific understanding. Instead, it represents a natural extension of how consciousness already operates, processing vast amounts of subtle information and integrating it into the unified experience of knowing what feels right or aligned. As our contemplative journey draws toward its gentle conclusion, notice how your own sense of possibility might have expanded during our time together. This expansion doesn't come from proving anything definitive about quantum manifestation, but rather from opening space for wonder about the relationship between consciousness and cosmos. The questions we've explored tonight don't have final answers, and perhaps that's as it should be. The mystery of consciousness, the strangeness of quantum mechanics, and the possibility of deeper connections between mind and reality continue to inspire researchers and philosophers to push the boundaries of understanding. What we can say with confidence is that consciousness represents one of the most remarkable phenomena in the known universe. From quantum processes that operate faster than light can travel between neurons, emerges the unified experience of awareness, memory, emotion, and intention. The emergence of consciousness from matter remains one of science's greatest puzzles, and solving it may require insights that bridge physics, neuroscience, and contemplative wisdom. In the meantime, we can appreciate manifestation practices for what they demonstrably accomplish. They focus attention, clarify intentions, and optimize our internal state for recognizing and pursuing meaningful opportunities. They help us examine our beliefs and assumptions, allowing us to consciously choose more empowering perspectives on what's possible. These benefits don't require quantum entanglement or consciousness-mediated wave function collapse to be valuable. They work through well-understood psychological and neurobiological mechanisms that are no less remarkable for being conventional. The capacity of consciousness to transform itself through focused practice represents a kind of everyday miracle that doesn't need quantum validation to inspire our appreciation. Yet something in us continues to wonder about deeper connections. Perhaps this wonder itself serves an important function, keeping us open to possibilities we haven't yet imagined. Science progresses not just through rigorous testing of established theories, but through the willingness to ask questions that seem impossible to answer. The intersection of quantum physics and consciousness represents one of the last great frontiers in human understanding. While we cannot yet prove that manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms, ongoing research continues to reveal surprising connections between mind and matter, observation and reality, intention and outcome. Future discoveries in neuroscience may illuminate how consciousness interfaces with quantum processes in the brain. Advances in quantum biology might show how quantum effects influence biological systems in ways we haven't yet imagined. New interpretations of quantum mechanics could reveal more about the role of observation and measurement in determining which possibilities become actualized. These developments will either support or refute the speculative connections we've explored tonight. Until then, we can hold these possibilities lightly, using them as invitations to wonder rather than beliefs to defend. We can approach manifestation practices with curiosity and discernment, appreciating their demonstrated benefits while remaining open to deeper mechanisms we don't yet understand. What matters most is not whether we can definitively solve these mysteries, but whether we can hold them with appropriate wonder and humility. The universe continues to surprise us with its depth, beauty, and strangeness. From quantum entanglement to the emergence of consciousness, reality operates by principles that challenge our most basic assumptions about existence itself. In this spirit of wonder and scientific humility, we can approach both quantum physics and manifestation practices with curiosity rather than dogma. We can explore the intersection of mind and matter with an open heart while maintaining rigorous thinking. We can appreciate the mystery of consciousness while remaining grounded in evidence and reason. The cosmos is under no obligation to conform to our expectations or limitations. It may be far stranger and more wonderful than we've yet imagined. And perhaps in that strangeness and wonder, there is room for possibilities that bridge the apparent gap between inner and outer reality, between quantum mechanics and conscious experience, between what we know and what we sense might be true. Thank you for joining me on this gentle exploration through the intersection of quantum physics and manifestation. Your curiosity and wonder contribute to the ongoing conversation between science and consciousness that may one day illuminate these profound mysteries. If this exploration has stirred your curiosity about how reality responds to the movements of awareness itself, you might find our previous discussion particularly fascinating. Quantum reality reacts when you stop believing your own thoughts. Until we meet again in the space where questions dance with possibilities, keep wondering about the beautiful strangeness of being conscious in a quantum universe. As you settle more deeply into these contemplative waters, let yourself wonder about something that might be happening right now within the landscape of your own awareness. Every moment of conscious experience involved the brain processing millions of bits of information, yet somehow you experience this not as chaos but as a unified field of knowing. This integration itself represents one of the most mysterious phenomena in nature, and some researchers have begun to ask whether the principles that govern this integration might share unexpected resonances with the principles that govern reality at quantum scales. Now, this doesn't mean consciousness directly manipulates quantum systems, or that your thoughts are collapsing wave functions in the external world. Rather, it invites us to consider whether the same mathematical patterns that describe quantum superposition and coherence might also illuminate how consciousness weaves together disparate elements of experience into unified moments of awareness. Recent advances in network neuroscience have revealed that consciousness appears to emerge from the brain's capacity to integrate information across widely distributed neural networks. When you recognize a familiar face, for instance, visual processing regions communicate with memory systems, emotional centers, and language areas, all coordinating their activity within milliseconds to produce the unified experience of recognition. Some researchers have wondered whether this integration process might involve quantum effects that help coordinate activity across the brain's vast neural networks. While this remains highly speculative and unproven, the idea is that quantum coherence might provide a mechanism for the rapid, synchronized coordination that consciousness seems to require. If this framework has any validity, then practices that enhance mental coherence and integration might optimize whatever quantum processes contribute to consciousness itself. This wouldn't mean that meditation or visualization directly influences external quantum systems, but rather that these practices might enhance the brain's natural capacity for information integration, creativity, and intuitive insight. Consider how this might appear in your own experience of focused intention. When you hold a clear vision of a desired outcome while maintaining emotional coherence around that vision, you're creating conditions that might optimize the brain's information processing capabilities. Not through mystical mechanisms, but through the same principles that govern how any complex system functions more effectively when its components are well coordinated. Let yourself drift now into a consideration of something quite beautiful about the nature of resonance itself. When two tuning forks are placed near each other and one is struck, the second will begin vibrating at the same frequency without being directly touched. This phenomenon occurs because the vibrating fork creates waves in the surrounding medium that can transfer energy to any system capable of resonating at that frequency. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness might operate according to similar principles, resonating with patterns of possibility that match its current state of coherence and clarity. This resonance wouldn't be mystical or supernatural, but rather an expression of how complex systems naturally organize themselves around stable patterns of information and energy. In quantum field theory, particles are understood not as discrete objects, but as excitations in underlying fields that fill all of space. These fields carry information about possible states and interactions, creating what we might think of as a background of potential that pervades reality at every scale. While consciousness doesn't directly manipulate these quantum fields, some researchers have wondered whether awareness might be sensitive to subtle patterns and correlations that exist within this background of possibility. This sensitivity would manifest not as supernatural perception, but as enhanced pattern recognition. improved intuition, and a greater capacity for creative insight. By cultivating coherent states of consciousness through practices like meditation or visualization, we might be optimizing our natural ability to detect and respond to subtle signals that can guide us toward aligned outcomes. The key insight is that this guidance wouldn't come from outside ourselves, but from accessing deeper levels of intelligence that already exist within the integrated system of consciousness, brain, and environment. When we quiet the analytical mind and open to receptive awareness, we might become more sensitive to information that was always available but previously filtered out by the constant activity of ordinary thinking. This information might include subtle social cues, environmental patterns, and even our own embodied wisdom about what choices serve our deepest well-being. None of this requires quantum entanglement or consciousness-mediated wave function collapse, but it does suggest that awareness might be capable of far more sophisticated information processing than we typically recognize. As you continue listening, allow yourself to sense how these ideas might be creating space for a different relationship with uncertainty and not knowing. One of the most counterintuitive insights from quantum mechanics is that indeterminacy isn't a limitation, but a fundamental creative principle. At the quantum level, genuine openness exists. Multiple possibilities remain available until interaction or measurement selects which potential becomes actualized. This quantum openness might offer a metaphor for understanding how consciousness navigates the landscape of possibility in everyday life. While we can't directly influence quantum systems through thought alone, we can appreciate that reality at every level involves the ongoing selection of actualized outcomes from a vast field of potential. And consciousness, as perhaps the most sophisticated information processing system we know of, might play a more active role in this selection process than purely mechanistic perspectives suggest. This participation wouldn't involve supernatural powers or violations of physical laws. Instead, it would represent the natural capacity of conscious systems to respond to information, make choices, and influence the cascade of events that connects individual decisions to collective outcomes. Through the choices we make moment by moment, consciousness participates in the ongoing creation of reality, not by manipulating external forces, but by skillfully navigating the web of relationships and possibilities that constitute our lived experience. The art lies in learning to make these choices from deeper levels of wisdom and coherence. When consciousness is fragmented by conflicting desires, unclear intentions, or emotional reactivity, our choices tend to create outcomes that reflect this inner chaos. But when consciousness achieves states of integration and clarity, our choices naturally align with patterns that serve both individual flourishing and collective well-being. This alignment occurs not through magical thinking, but through the enhanced information processing that becomes available when consciousness operates as a coherent system. We become more sensitive to the full context of our choices, more aware of their likely consequences, and more capable of selecting options that serve our deepest values and aspirations. Manifestation practices might work by training consciousness to operate from these deeper levels of coherence and wisdom. Through repeated experience of aligned states, we develop the capacity to recognize and choose possibilities that serve our highest development, even when these choices aren't obvious to the analytical mind. Take a gentle breath now, and let yourself wonder about the intricate web of relationships that connects every moment of conscious experience to the larger patterns of life unfolding around us. Ecology teaches us that no organism exists in isolation. Each is embedded within complex networks of interdependence that extend across multiple scales of space and time. Perhaps consciousness operates according to similar principles, existing not as an isolated entity, but as part of larger ecological systems of information, meaning, and possibility. This ecological perspective offers a framework for understanding how individual intentions might influence broader patterns without requiring direct causal mechanisms that violate known physics. Just as a single tree influences the microclimate of an entire forest through subtle changes in humidity, temperature, and chemical signals, perhaps coherent intentions influence the information environment in ways that can cascade into meaningful changes across social and environmental systems. These influences would be subtle and indirect, operating through the countless micro-interactions that connect conscious beings within larger networks of relationship. When someone cultivates states of peace, compassion, or clarity, these states influence their behavior in countless small ways that can have ripple effects throughout their social environment. Others may respond to these subtle changes in energy and presence, creating feedback loops that can amplify positive shifts across entire communities. Some preliminary research has explored whether collective meditation or prayer practices might correlate with measurable changes in social indicators like crime rates or conflict levels. While these studies remain controversial and their findings are not widely accepted by the scientific community, they point toward intriguing possibilities about how consciousness might participate in larger patterns of social organization. The mechanisms wouldn't be mystical, but rather expressions of how complex social systems respond to changes in the information environment. When many people simultaneously cultivate states of coherence and positive intention, this might create subtle shifts in the social field that influence collective behavior in ways we're only beginning to understand. This perspective doesn't guarantee that focused intention will always produce desired outcomes, nor does it suggest that positive thinking alone can solve complex social problems. But it does invite us to consider whether consciousness might play a more active role in social and environmental systems than individualistic perspectives typically recognize. As we approach the deeper currents of our exploration, let yourself imagine consciousness as a kind of quantum garden, a space where possibilities are cultivated through attention, intention, and care. In an actual garden, the gardener doesn't force plants to grow, but rather creates optimal conditions for growth by providing appropriate soil, water, light, and nutrients. Similarly, manifestation practices might work by creating optimal internal conditions for possibilities to unfold naturally. This cultivation would involve both focused intention and receptive openness, both clear direction and flexible responsiveness to what wants to emerge. Just as a skilled gardener learns to read the subtle signals that indicate what each plant needs, perhaps we can learn to read the subtle signals that guide us toward choices and actions that serve our deepest flourishing. The quantum aspect of this metaphor relates to the fundamental openness that exists at the foundation of reality. At quantum scales, multiple possibilities coexist until interaction selects which potential becomes actualized. While consciousness doesn't directly collapse quantum wave functions in the external world, some interpretations suggest that awareness might interface with quantum processes within the brain in ways that influence how information is integrated and how choices are made. This influence would be subtle and indirect, but it could have significant effects on how we perceive and respond to opportunities in our environment. By cultivating coherent states of consciousness we might optimize our natural capacity for pattern recognition, creative problem solving, and intuitive guidance, helping us make choices that align with our deepest aspirations, even when the logical path isn't immediately obvious. The practice would involve learning to tend the garden of consciousness with the same patience and skill that a master gardener brings to their plants. This means creating regular periods of quiet reflection, cultivating emotional coherence around our deepest intentions, and developing sensitivity to the subtle signals that guide us toward aligned action. Over time, this cultivation might create feedback loops between inner coherence and outer manifestation, as clearer intentions lead to more aligned choices, which create outcomes that reinforce our sense of possibility and purpose. The process becomes self-reinforcing, not through magical mechanisms, but through the natural tendency of conscious systems to organize themselves around patterns that support their flourishing. Let yourself rest now in the deeper rhythms of contemplation, where the boundaries between scientific understanding and intuitive wisdom begin to soften into a more integrated way of knowing. Throughout our exploration, we've encountered hints that reality might be far more participatory than traditional materialism suggests. Not because consciousness directly manipulates quantum fields, but because awareness and cosmos might share deeper patterns of organization than we've previously recognized. Emergence theory offers a bridge between these perspectives. It describes how simple interactions at one level can give rise to complex properties at higher levels that cannot be predicted from the individual components alone. Consciousness itself represents perhaps the most striking example of emergence arising from neural activity in ways that remain deeply mysterious to science. Perhaps manifestation involves a similar kind of emergence, but operating across multiple levels simultaneously. When we align our beliefs, emotions, intentions, and actions around a coherent vision, we might be creating conditions for new possibilities to emerge that wouldn't have existed otherwise. This emergence wouldn't require supernatural mechanisms, but would rely on the natural tendency of complex systems to self-organize toward greater functionality and coherence. The process might unfold something like this. Focused intention creates coherence within consciousness, optimizing our capacity for insight and aligned action. These aligned choices create changes in our behavior and responses that influence our social and environmental context. Over time, these influences can cascade through larger systems, creating opportunities and synchronicities that support the manifestation of our deepest intentions. None of this violates known physics or requires mystical explanations. Instead, it represents the natural expression of how consciousness, as a complex adaptive system, can learn to navigate reality more skillfully through the cultivation of internal coherence and external sensitivity. The beauty of this framework is that it honors both scientific rigor and the lived experience of those who practice manifestation techniques. It doesn't ask us to believe in impossible mechanisms or reject well-established science. Instead, it invites us to consider how consciousness might participate more actively in reality than purely materialist perspectives allow, while remaining grounded in principles we can observe and potentially test. As you drift deeper into these contemplations, notice how they might be shifting your sense of relationship with existence itself. If consciousness and cosmos share deeper patterns of organization, if awareness participates actively in the ongoing creation of reality, then perhaps the universe is not the cold, mechanical system that purely materialist science once portrayed, but something more akin to a vast, intelligent, creative process in which we are intimately embedded. This doesn't mean the universe is conscious in the way humans are conscious, or that it has intentions and preferences like individual beings. Rather, it suggests that the same principles that give rise to consciousness, integration, coherence, the creative response to information, might operate at cosmic scales in ways we're only beginning to glimpse. Recent discoveries in cosmology have revealed that the universe exhibits remarkable fine-tuning, with physical constants calibrated to extraordinary precision to allow for the emergence of complexity, life, and consciousness. While this fine-tuning doesn't prove the existence of cosmic intelligence, it does suggest that the universe is far more hospitable to the emergence of aware beings than random chance would seem to allow. Some interpretations propose that consciousness and cosmos co-evolve, each influencing the other's development across vast scales of space and time. In this view, the emergence of conscious beings isn't an accident, but an expression of the universe's inherent creativity, its tendency to generate ever more sophisticated forms of organization, awareness, and beauty. If this perspective has any validity, then the practice of manifestation might be understood as a form of conscious participation in the universe's ongoing creative process. Rather than trying to manipulate reality for personal gain, we would be learning to align our individual intentions with the deeper patterns of creativity and evolution that pervade natural systems. This alignment would express itself as a deep sense of purposefulness and meaning, a felt connection to something larger than our individual concerns. It might manifest as increased synchronicity, enhanced creativity, and a natural flow toward outcomes that serve both individual fulfillment and collective well-being. The practice would involve cultivating what we might call cosmic consciousness, a way of holding our personal intentions within the larger context of universal creativity and intelligence. This doesn't mean abandoning individual desires, but rather holding them lightly, allowing them to be informed and refined by our growing sensitivity to the deeper patterns of emergence and evolution. As our contemplative journey draws toward its natural completion, let yourself sense how your relationship with mystery itself might have evolved during our time together. We began with questions about quantum entanglement and manifestation, and while we haven't arrived at definitive answers, we've perhaps discovered something more valuable, an enhanced capacity for wonder about the nature of consciousness and its relationship to the cosmos. This wonder isn't merely intellectual curiosity, but a more fundamental orientation toward reality that remains open to possibilities beyond our current understanding. In a universe where particles can be instantaneously correlated across cosmic distances, where consciousness emerges from matter in ways we still can't explain, and where observation itself seems to play a role in determining which possibilities become actualized, maintaining wonder seems more appropriate than claiming certainty. The questions we've explored tonight will continue to inspire researchers and philosophers for generations to come. Future discoveries in neuroscience may reveal more about how consciousness interfaces with quantum processes in the brain. Advances in quantum biology might illuminate how quantum effects influence biological systems in ways we haven't yet imagined. New interpretations of quantum mechanics could shed light on the role of observation and measurement in the unfolding of reality itself. These developments will either support or refute the speculative connections we've explored. Until then, we can hold these possibilities with appropriate lightness, using them as invitations to wonder rather than beliefs to defend. We can approach manifestation practices with curiosity and discernment, appreciating their demonstrated benefits while remaining open to deeper mechanisms we don't yet understand. What matters most is not whether we can definitively prove that manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms, but whether we can remain open to the profound mystery of consciousness and its relationship to reality. This openness allows us to appreciate both the remarkable achievements of science and the irreducible mystery that remains at the heart of existence itself. The intersection of quantum physics and consciousness represents one of the most fertile frontiers in human understanding. While we cannot yet prove that thoughts directly influence quantum systems, or that manifestation works through non-local consciousness effects, the questions themselves continue to inspire new ways of thinking about the nature of mind and reality. Perhaps the real gift of exploring these connections lies not in solving the mysteries definitively, but in allowing them to expand our sense of what might be possible. In a cosmos that continues to surprise us with its depth and strangeness, maintaining humility and wonder seems like the most appropriate response to the ongoing revelation of reality's profound interconnectedness and creativity. Thank you for joining me on this gentle exploration through the intersection of quantum physics and manifestation. Your curiosity and openness to wonder contribute to the ongoing conversation between science and consciousness that may one day illuminate these profound mysteries. If this exploration has stirred your interest in how reality responds to the quality of our attention itself, you might find our previous discussion particularly intriguing. Quantum reality reacts when you stop believing your own thoughts. Until we meet again in the space where questions dance with infinite possibility, keep wondering about the beautiful mystery of being conscious in a quantum universe. As we settle into this final phase of our exploration, let yourself wonder about something that might be unfolding right now in the space between these words and your understanding. Each moment of comprehension involves your brain making countless micro-decisions about which neural pathways to activate, which memories to access, which interpretations to embrace. In a very real sense, you are continuously measuring and selecting from a vast field of possible meanings, collapsing the uncertainty of language into the definiteness of understanding. This process bears a curious resemblance to quantum measurement, though we must be careful not to conflate the two phenomena. In quantum mechanics, measurement involves the selection of one definite outcome from many possible states. In consciousness, comprehension involves the selection of one interpretation from many possible meanings. While these processes operate at vastly different scales, some researchers have wondered whether they might share deeper structural similarities. The Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that measurement is fundamentally about the transfer of information from a quantum system to a classical recording device. Some speculative interpretations propose that consciousness might function as a kind of biological recording device, but this remains highly controversial and unproven. What we can say with confidence is that both quantum measurement and conscious comprehension involve the transformation of potential into actuality through interaction and selection. And consider how this might appear in your own experience of focused attention. When you direct your awareness toward a specific question or problem, you're not passively receiving information, but actively selecting which aspects of your experience to highlight and which to filter out. This selective attention shapes not only what you notice, but also how you interpret and respond to what you encounter. Recent neuroscience research has revealed that attention operates through complex networks that can enhance or suppress neural activity across different brain regions. When you focus on something specific, your brain doesn't just process that information more clearly, it actually changes which neural pathways are strengthened and which are allowed to fade into the background. Over time, these patterns of selective attention literally sculpt the structure of consciousness itself through neuroplasticity. The pathways you repeatedly activate become stronger and more accessible, while unused connections gradually weaken. In this way, consciousness actively participates in its own development, selecting which possibilities to strengthen and which to release. This participation doesn't require quantum effects to be profound. Through the choices we make about where to direct our attention and how to interpret our experience, we continuously shape the neural architecture that gives rise to our ongoing sense of self and reality. The implications for manifestation practices are subtle, but potentially significant. Take a gentle breath now, and let yourself sense how the quality of your attention might be shifting as we explore these deeper territories together. Notice how sustained focus on these ideas creates a kind of mental coherence, where scattered thoughts begin to organize themselves around central themes and questions. This coherence isn't just intellectual, it involves the integration of understanding across emotional, imaginative, and intuitive dimensions of awareness. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness might achieve its remarkable unity through quantum coherence effects in neural microtubules, though this theory remains highly speculative and controversial within mainstream neuroscience. What we can observe directly is that practices which enhance mental coherence, meditation, visualization, focused intention, produce measurable changes in brain activity and behavior. These changes occur through well-understood neurobiological mechanisms rather than exotic quantum effects. When consciousness achieves states of integration and clarity, the brain operates more efficiently, stress responses diminish, and cognitive flexibility increases. We become more capable of creative problem solving, pattern recognition, and what researchers call insight moments, those sudden flashes of understanding that seem to emerge from nowhere but actually reflect the integration of previously disconnected information. Perhaps manifestation practices work by optimizing these natural capacities for coherence and insight. When we align our thoughts, emotions, and intentions around a clear vision, we might be creating optimal conditions for the brain to recognize patterns and possibilities that serve our deepest aspirations. This recognition wouldn't be mystical, but rather an expression of consciousness functioning at its highest level of integration and effectiveness. The process might unfold something like this. Focused intention creates coherence within neural networks, enhancing our capacity for subtle pattern recognition and creative response. This enhanced perception helps us notice opportunities and make choices that align with our intentions. Over time, these aligned choices create feedback loops that reinforce both internal coherence and external outcomes, leading to results that can seem remarkably synchronized with our deepest desires. None of this requires supernatural mechanisms or violations of known physics. Instead, it represents the natural expression of how consciousness, as a complex adaptive system, can learn to navigate reality more skillfully through the cultivation of internal coherence and external sensitivity. As you continue listening, allow yourself to contemplate something quite remarkable about the nature of time itself within conscious experience. While physics describes time as a dimension through which events unfold in sequence, Consciousness seems to exist in a kind of eternal present that somehow encompasses memory of the past and anticipation of the future within each moment of awareness. This temporal architecture of consciousness creates fascinating possibilities for understanding how intention might influence outcomes across time. When you hold a clear vision of a desired future, you're not just imagining something that doesn't yet exist. You're creating a present moment neural pattern that can influence your perception and behavior in ways that make that future more probable. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, particularly the transactional interpretation developed by physicist John Cramer, suggest that quantum interactions involve a kind of handshake between past and future events. While this doesn't permit macroscopic time travel or retrocausality, it does hint that the relationship between cause and effect might be more nuanced than simple linear progression allows. This remains purely speculative when applied to consciousness and manifestation, with no scientific consensus supporting such connections. However, it offers an intriguing framework for thinking about how focused intention might work with temporal possibilities rather than against them. Instead of trying to force specific outcomes through willpower alone, perhaps we can learn to align with probable futures that already exist in potential. This alignment wouldn't involve supernatural powers, but rather enhanced sensitivity to the subtle patterns and trends that indicate which possibilities are most likely to unfold. Just as skilled weather forecasters learn to read atmospheric conditions to predict likely weather patterns, perhaps we can develop sensitivity to the informational patterns that suggest which choices and actions will lead toward desired outcomes. The practice would involve cultivating what we might call temporal intuition, the capacity to sense which paths through time feel most aligned with our deepest values and aspirations. This guidance might emerge through synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, changes in energy or mood, or simply an intuitive sense of rightness about particular choices. Such guidance wouldn't guarantee specific outcomes, but could help us navigate toward futures that serve our highest development while remaining responsive to the complex, unpredictable dynamics of life itself. The key would be holding intentions lightly, allowing them to inform our choices without becoming attached to rigid expectations about how they must manifest. Let yourself drift now into consideration of something that might be happening within the larger ecology of awareness that connects all conscious beings. Just as individual trees in a forest share nutrients and information through underground fungal networks, perhaps individual consciousness participates in subtler networks of connection and mutual influence that we're only beginning to understand. This isn't to suggest telepathic communication or supernatural connection between minds, but rather to consider how the countless micro-interactions between conscious beings might create emergent patterns at social and cultural scales. When many people simultaneously cultivate states of coherence, compassion, or creative inspiration, these individual states might influence the larger informational environment in ways that support collective flourishing. Some preliminary research has explored whether group meditation or prayer practices correlate with measurable changes in social indicators, though these findings remain controversial and are not widely accepted by the scientific community. The proposed mechanisms wouldn't be mystical, but rather expressions of how complex social systems respond to changes in collective behavior and attention. Consider how this might appear in everyday life. When you cultivate states of peace, clarity, or positive intention, These states influence your behaviour in countless subtle ways. Your tone of voice, your body language, your choices about how to respond to challenging situations. Others naturally respond to these changes in your presence and energy, creating ripple effects that can extend far beyond your immediate interactions. Over time, these ripple effects might create feedback loops within social networks that amplify positive changes across entire communities. While individual consciousness doesn't directly manipulate external quantum systems, it does participate in the complex web of relationships and interactions that shape collective outcomes through entirely natural mechanisms. This perspective invites us to consider manifestation not as an individual practice of reality manipulation, but as conscious participation in the larger ecosystem of awareness and intention that connects all life. Rather than trying to force specific personal outcomes, we might learn to align our individual aspirations with patterns that serve both personal fulfillment and collective well-being. As we move deeper into these contemplations, notice how the language we use to describe these phenomena shapes our understanding of them. The metaphors we choose, the concepts we embrace, the questions we ask, all of these linguistic choices participate in constructing our experience of what's possible and how reality operates. Traditional mechanistic language describes consciousness as a passive observer of an objective, independent reality. Quantum language introduces concepts like observer effects, measurement problems, and participatory universe that suggest a more interactive relationship between awareness and the phenomena it encounters. Neither language is simply right or wrong, but each opens different possibilities for understanding and exploration. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, particularly those influenced by information theory, suggest that reality might be fundamentally informational rather than material. In this view, what we call particles, forces, and fields might be better understood as patterns of information that give rise to the phenomena we experience as physical reality. While this remains highly speculative and not accepted by mainstream physics, it offers intriguing possibilities for thinking about consciousness and its relationship to the cosmos. If information is indeed fundamental to reality, then consciousness, which specializes in processing, integrating, and responding to information, might be more intimately connected to the basic structure of existence than purely materialist perspectives suggest. This doesn't mean consciousness creates reality through quantum effects, but it does hint that awareness might participate more actively in reality's ongoing unfoldment than traditional science allows. The implications for manifestation practices would be subtle but potentially profound. Rather than thoughts directly manipulating quantum fields, focused intention might help us align with informational patterns that were always present but previously unrecognized. The art would lie in learning to read the subtle signals that guide us toward choices and actions that serve our deepest aspirations. This guidance wouldn't be supernatural, but rather an expression of consciousness, functioning as a sophisticated information processing system that can detect and respond to patterns too subtle for ordinary analytical thinking to recognize. The practice would involve cultivating receptive states that allow this deeper intelligence to emerge and inform our decisions. Take another gentle breath and let yourself wonder about the delicate balance between focused intention and receptive openness that seems to characterize the most effective approaches to manifestation. This balance reflects a deeper paradox in consciousness itself, the simultaneous capacity for directed attention and expansive awareness, for clear intention and flexible responsiveness to unexpected possibilities. Neuroscience research has revealed that the brain operates through the dynamic interplay of focused attention networks and default mode networks that support more diffuse, associative thinking. When these systems work together harmoniously, consciousness achieves optimal states for both goal-directed action and creative insight. Perhaps effective manifestation requires a similar integration of focused intention with receptive openness to possibilities we haven't yet imagined. This integration wouldn't require quantum effects to be powerful. Through practices that enhance both mental clarity and emotional flexibility, we can optimize consciousness for navigating the complex, uncertain landscape of everyday life. We become more capable of holding our intentions lightly while remaining fully committed to aligned action, more skilled at recognizing opportunities while staying grounded in realistic assessment of what's possible. The process might involve learning to dance between states of focused visualization and periods of receptive listening, between clear goal setting and flexible responsiveness to changing circumstances. This dance requires a kind of practical wisdom that can only be developed through experience, the capacity to know when to persist and when to pivot, when to push forward and when to allow outcomes to unfold naturally. Some contemplative traditions describe this as the path of effortless effort, or wu wei, action that flows naturally from deep understanding rather than forced striving. While we can't prove that such states involve quantum coherence effects in consciousness, we can observe that they produce remarkable results in terms of both personal effectiveness and overall well-being. Perhaps the deepest teaching of manifestation practices isn't that we can control reality through thought alone, but that we can learn to participate more skillfully in the ongoing dance between intention and circumstance, between individual aspiration and the larger patterns of life that surround and include us. As our exploration draws toward its natural completion, let yourself rest in the recognition that meaning itself might be one of the most mysterious phenomena we've encountered throughout our journey. How does consciousness transform the raw data of sensory experience into rich, meaningful narratives that connect past, present, and future into coherent stories of identity and purpose? This process of meaning-making involves the integration of information across multiple dimensions of experience: sensory, emotional, conceptual, intuitive. Through mechanisms we still don't fully understand, consciousness weaves these disparate elements into unified experiences that feel personally significant and connected to larger patterns of value and purpose. Some researchers have wondered whether this integration process might involve quantum effects that help coordinate activity across the brain's vast neural networks. While this remains highly speculative, the idea suggests that meaning-making might be more fundamental to consciousness than we typically recognize, not just something consciousness does, but something it is at its deepest level. If this perspective has any validity, then practices that enhance our capacity for meaning-making might also optimize whatever quantum processes contribute to consciousness itself. This optimization wouldn't give us supernatural powers, but could enhance our natural capacities for insight, creativity, and wise decision-making in ways that support the manifestation of outcomes aligned with our deepest values. The process would involve learning to recognize the meaningful patterns that connect our individual experiences to larger webs of significance and purpose. This recognition might emerge through contemplative practices that quiet the analytical mind and open space for subtler forms of knowing to arise, the kind of knowing that integrates rational understanding with embodied wisdom and intuitive insight. Such practices don't require belief in quantum consciousness effects to be valuable. They work through well-understood mechanisms of neuroplasticity, emotional regulation, and attention training that are no less remarkable for being conventional. Yet they open possibilities for conscious participation in reality that might be far richer and more creative than purely materialist perspectives typically allow. As you prepare to complete this contemplative journey with me, notice how your sense of what's possible might have expanded during our time together. This expansion doesn't come from proving anything definitive about quantum manifestation, but rather from opening space for wonder about the relationship between consciousness and the cosmos we find ourselves embedded within. The questions we've explored together don't have final answers, and perhaps that's as it should be. The mystery of consciousness, the strangeness of quantum mechanics, and the possibility of deeper connections between awareness and reality continue to inspire researchers and contemplatives to push the boundaries of understanding in directions we can barely imagine. What we can say with confidence is that consciousness represents one of the most extraordinary phenomena in the known universe. From the quantum processes that govern neural activity emerges the unified field of awareness that encompasses your current experience of understanding, wonder, and peaceful contemplation. This emergence remains one of science's greatest puzzles, and solving it may require insights that bridge physics, neuroscience, and the contemplative wisdom traditions that have explored consciousness for millennia. In the meantime, we can appreciate manifestation practices for what they demonstrably accomplish, focusing attention, clarifying intentions, and optimizing our internal states for recognizing and pursuing meaningful possibilities. These benefits don't require quantum entanglement or consciousness-mediated wave function collapse to be profoundly valuable. They work through well-understood psychological and neurobiological mechanisms that represent everyday miracles worthy of our deepest appreciation. Yet something in us continues to wonder about deeper connections, and perhaps this wonder itself serves an essential function in keeping us open to possibilities we haven't yet imagined. Science progresses not only through rigorous testing of established theories, but through the willingness to ask questions that seem impossible to answer with current knowledge and methods. The intersection of quantum physics and consciousness represents one of the final frontiers in human understanding. While we cannot yet prove that manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms, ongoing research continues to reveal surprising connections between mind and matter, observation and reality, intention and outcome that may eventually illuminate these profound mysteries. Future discoveries in neuroscience may reveal more about how consciousness interfaces with quantum processes in biological systems. Advances in quantum biology might show how quantum effects influence complex living systems in ways we haven't yet imagined. New interpretations of quantum mechanics could shed light on the role of observation and measurement in the ongoing unfoldment of reality itself. These developments will either support or refute the speculative connections we've explored throughout our journey together. Until then, we can hold these possibilities with appropriate lightness, using them as invitations to wonder rather than beliefs to defend. We can approach manifestation practices with curiosity and discernment, appreciating their demonstrated benefits while remaining open to deeper mechanisms we don't yet understand. What matters most is not whether we can definitively solve these mysteries, but whether we can hold them with the wonder and humility they deserve. The universe continues to surprise us with its depth, beauty, and fundamental strangeness. From quantum entanglement to the emergence of consciousness. Reality operates by principles that challenge our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence itself. In this spirit of wonder and scientific humility, we can approach both quantum physics and contemplative practices with curiosity rather than dogma. We can explore the intersection of mind and matter with open hearts while maintaining rigorous thinking. We can appreciate the mystery of consciousness while remaining grounded in evidence and reason. The cosmos is under no obligation to conform to our expectations or limitations. It may be far stranger and more wonderful than we've yet imagined. And perhaps, in that strangeness and wonder, there is room for possibilities that bridge the apparent gap between inner and outer reality, between quantum mechanics and conscious experience, between what we know and what we sense might be true. Thank you for joining me on this gentle exploration through the intersection of quantum physics and manifestation. Your curiosity and openness to mystery contribute to the ongoing conversation between science and consciousness that may one day illuminate these profound questions in ways we can barely envision. If this exploration has stirred your wonder about how reality responds to the quality of awareness itself, you might find our previous discussion particularly fascinating. Quantum reality reacts when you stop believing your own thoughts. Until we meet again in the space where questions dance with infinite possibility, keep wondering about the beautiful mystery of being conscious in a quantum universe. As our contemplative expedition draws toward its gentle conclusion, let yourself wonder about something that might be unfolding within the very fabric of reality as you listen to these words. Right now, in laboratories around the world, scientists are conducting experiments that probe the deepest mysteries of quantum entanglement, testing the boundaries of what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. These researchers are not just studying abstract physics, they're exploring fundamental questions about the nature of reality that could reshape our understanding of consciousness, connection, and what it means to be aware beings in an interconnected universe. Some of these experiments involve creating entangled particles and separating them by thousands of miles, then measuring one to see how instantaneously the other responds. Others explore quantum effects in biological systems, investigating whether the strange rules that govern subatomic particles might also influence the delicate processes that give rise to life and awareness. Still others probe the boundaries between quantum and classical reality, asking where and how the mysterious transition occurs between the realm of infinite possibility and the definite world we experience. Each new discovery adds another piece to a puzzle that grows more beautiful and mysterious with every answer we uncover. The quantum realm continues to reveal properties that challenge our most basic assumptions about separateness, locality, and the relationship between observation and reality. And while we still cannot prove that human consciousness directly interfaces with quantum processes, the questions themselves continue to inspire new ways of thinking about the nature of mind and its place in the cosmic order. Perhaps the most profound insight from all this research isn't any single discovery, but rather the recognition that reality, at its foundation, operates by principles far stranger and more interconnected than our everyday experience suggests. This strangeness doesn't diminish the wonder of existence, it amplifies it, revealing a universe so rich in mystery and possibility that even our boldest imaginings might barely scratch the surface of what's actually unfolding. Take a final gentle breath with me, and let yourself sense how this entire exploration might be shifting something subtle in your relationship with the universe itself. We began by asking whether quantum entanglement could be the hidden science behind manifestation, and while we haven't arrived at definitive proof, we've perhaps discovered something more valuable: a deeper appreciation for the profound mystery that surrounds the emergence of consciousness within a quantum cosmos. The picture that emerges from our journey together is not one of a mechanical universe where thoughts directly manipulate quantum fields, but rather something far more beautiful and subtle. We find ourselves as conscious beings embedded within a reality that is fundamentally relational, participatory, and open to possibilities we're still learning to recognize and explore. This reality operates through principles of emergence, coherence, and creative response to information that manifest across every scale, from quantum particles to galactic clusters. Consciousness appears to be not an accident or epiphenomenon, but a natural expression of the universe's inherent tendency toward greater complexity, integration, and awareness of itself through the beings it creates. In this view, manifestation practices don't work by forcing reality to conform to our personal desires through supernatural mechanisms. Instead, they help us learn to participate more skillfully in the ongoing dance of creativity and emergence that constitutes existence itself. They teach us to recognize the subtle patterns that guide us toward choices and actions aligned with both individual flourishing and the larger patterns of evolution and development that pervade natural systems. The evidence suggests that consciousness can indeed influence reality, but primarily through the choices we make, the attention we cultivate, and the coherence we bring to our inner life. These influences ripple out through the complex web of relationships that connect us to all of life, creating possibilities for synchronicity, meaning, and manifestation that work through entirely natural mechanisms, while remaining no less remarkable for being scientifically grounded. What we practice when we engage in manifestation isn't reality manipulation, but reality participation, learning to dance more gracefully with the creative intelligence that seems to pervade the cosmos at every level. This intelligence doesn't guarantee that our personal desires will always manifest, but it does suggest that when we align our deepest intentions with the larger patterns of creativity and care that support all life, possibilities can unfold that exceed our individual imagination. As you drift off to sleep tonight, or simply rest in quiet contemplation, you might sense this creative intelligence humming quietly beneath the surface of every moment, not as something separate from you, but as the very ground of your being, the aware presence that makes possible both your individual consciousness and your intimate connection to the vast, mysterious, beautiful cosmos that gave birth to you and continues to unfold through your every breath, thought, and dream. The quantum universe doesn't need us to prove its mysteries to remain endlessly fascinating. It simply invites us to participate with wonder, humility, and the recognition that being conscious in such a reality is itself the most extraordinary manifestation of all. Thank you for sharing this exploration with me. Until we meet again in the space where science and wonder converge, keep marveling at the beautiful mystery of existence itself. Our journey through the quantum landscape of possibility draws to its natural close, but the questions we've explored together will continue rippling through your awareness long after these words fade into silence. We began by wondering if quantum entanglement might be the hidden science behind manifestation, and while we discovered no definitive proof, we found something perhaps more valuable: a profound appreciation for the mystery that surrounds consciousness and its place in a quantum universe. The evidence suggests that reality is far more participatory than we once imagined, not because thoughts manipulate quantum fields, but because awareness itself emerges from the same strange principles that govern particles across cosmic distances. Whether manifestation operates through quantum mechanisms remains beautifully uncertain, but the exploration itself reveals the extraordinary nature of being conscious in a cosmos where connection transcends space and possibility dances with actuality at every scale. Keep wondering,